Hello and good day. This is the Bible Bard. A bard is a storyteller who in ancient times recited traditional texts associated with a particular oral tradition. And I'm here to recite and to amplify what the literature of the Bible says about who is God and who are human beings. Here's the place we're at today. Our topic today is biblical prophecy and prediction. And most of us are familiar with three kinds of prophecy, if you think about it. First is statistical forecasting in modern times, which is based on data and models and assumptions, and which probability is calculated, often computer assisted, that states how likely something is to happen. Then we have mystical or extra biblical prediction, and these are human beings who claim some sort of connection to knowledgeable spirits, and they predict events through fortune telling, like personal fortune telling or consulting omens or natural phenomena like the stars and astrology and that kind of thing. And they sometimes engage in ecstatic speech where they make predictions about national or world events. Then there's the third one, which is what we discuss here as biblical prophecy. And this happens through a human person, called it usually a prophet. God reveals through them what is about to happen or will happen at a future time in history. This is often didactic and public proclamation concerning the future. Now, when skeptics think about prophecy as fortune telling or intuitive prediction of the future, usually in vague and uncertain terms that only seem to connect later or be correct when an event comes to pass that fits the words of the declaration. That's how skeptics think about it. Extra biblical prophecies are often mystagogic. The communication is designed to lead listeners inward, guiding them into a deeper spiritual, symbolic, or mystical human experience. These declarations often aim at an extra biblical human transformation or awakening that is said to continue human spiritual evolution. Our biblical prophecy is rhetorical. It's a communication designed to declare a message outwardly, a public warning, a command of God, a promise of God, or an interpretation of history that God provides. Now, the source of biblical prophecy is a God. Through words and a human person or a prophet, God reveals what is about to happen or will occur at a future time in history. In the Bible, a symbol is almost always rhetorical. It's a figurative image or object or act by the prophet used by God to make a direct statement about the future. Symbols teach. They are messages framed in figurative language. Discussion. So when we look at modern prophetic symbolism, we see it's mystically religious, psychological, or literary in the modern world. We see the symbols presented represent inner psyche emotions. Archetypes or spiritual growth is found in dreams, poems, mystical writings, and psychological models. Representation examples would include things like the book St. John of the Cross, the dark night of the soul, the night being a metaphor for internal purification and desolation. Then we can see things like Carl Jung's alchemical vessel, a crucible, as an archetype of psychic integration. A symbolism is psychological and not historical. And of course, in the Buddhist, the lotus as a symbol of enlightenment that dispels ignorance is a humanly inward, non-historical, and universal in scope symbol. Modern symbolism reverses the direction of biblical symbolism. Modern symbols are inward, metaphorical, and psychological. But when we look at or interpret biblical prophecy, it is historical. not symbolic or mystical in a modern extra-biblical sense. For example, we compare the use of symbolism in the Bible and its use to modern literature in the following table, which you can get by going to www.biblebard.org and click the PDF link, and you can get the transcript of this episode, Bible Bard 119. You can read the table. Is called Compare Bible and Modern Symbolism, and there's 3 columns. The column 1 calls for aspect. Column 2 is about biblical symbolism, rhetorical, and column 3 is modern symbol, psychological or mystical. Row 1, we see the purpose of the modern symbolism, and we see that it is to declare a divine message or covenant truth. But in modern symbolism, we're just expressing some inner transformation, some consciousness or experience that the prophet has. In row 2, we look at the focus of symbolism, and we see that in biblical symbolism, it's a historical focus with a moral and a communal aspect. But in mystical, modern symbolism, we're looking at individual, spiritual, and psychological components. In row 3, we see the method of symbolism, and that is a concrete sign or action in biblical symbolism, like Isaiah 8:18, and we'll get to that. Metaphors or archetypes or dream images are what we find in modern symbolism. And then in row 4, we see finally the medium, which is a public prophetic action. For example, Isaiah's sons, that we'll get to in a couple of minutes. But in modern symbolism and modern prophetic actions, it's a private interior experience. Finally, in row 5, as an example, we have Jeremiah's yoke in Jeremiah 27:28, which is a symbol designed to give you an idea of what is going to happen in the future historically, as Israel is told through this yoke image that they're going to go into slavery. But the dark night of the soul and Jungian imagery is what we get out of modern symbolism. So what are we doing here? We're saying the Bible signs function as God's voice in history. The symbol is used external to human consciousness. It often marks a historical event and is covenantal, meaning it speaks to God's people about their relationship to Him. Summary: as an illustration of biblical prophecies focused on the historical, let's look at the prophet Isaiah and his family in chapter 7 of the book of Isaiah. According to the context, Isaiah is married. His wife is unnamed, but referred to as the prophetess, Isaiah 8:3. Whether she herself speaks the words of God or whether this title is only given her because she's married to the prophet, we don't know. But together, Isaiah and his wife have 2 sons, and they're directed to give their sons weird names that have prophetic meaning. The sons themselves are symbols. The first son is to be named Shear-Jashub in Isaiah 7:3. The meaning, which I can hardly pronounce the Hebrew, is a remnant shall return. This child's name itself is a prophetic message stating that although God will judge the nation for its sin, the nation will come back. A remnant will survive. The second son is named Mahir-Shalal-Hash-Baz, Isaiah 8:3, meaning swift to the spoil, speedy to the prey. It's not a name that most children want to have when they go off to elementary school. This child's name speaks of an imminent Assyrian assault on Damascus and Samaria, the northern capital of Israel, predicting a military defeat and the deportation of the people from their land to the land of Assyria. How do we know this? we're given this family as a prophetic declaration in Israel. The text itself states in Isaiah 8:18, quote, "Behold," Isaiah is speaking, "behold, I and the children whom the Lord has given me are for signs and wonders in Israel." In Isaiah 7:1-9, Isaiah is told by God, "Take his son, Shear-Jashub, and go meet the king Ahaz." The message he gives to this king in about 734 BCE is as follows, quote, "Be careful, keep calm, and don't be afraid of these two." And he's speaking of the king of Amram and the king of Israel who are attacking Jerusalem. Isaiah tells King Ahaz within 65 years, Ephraim, meaning the kingdom of the 10 tribes of Israel, will be too shattered to be a people. They will be invaded and the people carried into exile by Assyria. That's the content of what the message is in verse 17 and 20. And then this event happens in 734 to 732 BCE when Tilgatlath-Pileser, number 3, attacks Amram and Israel. King Ahaz, therefore, in 735 BCE, is standing there at the end of an aqueduct. He's concerned about securing water for the city during the siege he fears is coming from this alliance of these two kings, Rezin and Pekah. Isaiah and his son, Shear-Jashub, meet him. The message Isaiah gives him is, don't fear the two kings. Their attack will fail, and it does. In 734, 733 BC. He says instead, fear Assyria, for its king will one day, quote, "shave your head and private parts and cut off your beard also," end quote. Verse 20, this humiliation of shaving the body of the captured is what Assyrians actually did to those they conquered and subjugated. In history, we see that this guy, Tilgath-Pileser III of Assyria, attacks these two kings, Amram and Israel, at King Ahaz's actual request. He asks for support from this guy. Rezin is killed in 732 BC and 722 BCE. Shalmaneser V comes along and deports the northern kingdom people into Assyria. In 720 BCE, Sargon II consolidates Assyrian victories in the Middle East. Ahaz is dead in 715 BCE and in 701 BC, the Assyrian king Sennacherib destroys most of what is left of Judah, and he leaves Jerusalem as a vassal city-state under tribute during the reign of Hezekiah. In 667 and 9 BCE, the Assyrian Esarhaddon, 681 to 609 or 669 BCE, and Ashurbanipal from 669 to 631 BCE erase Israel's ethnic identity by deporting all the Jews and resettling other ethnicities in Jewish lands. So these are called the Samaritans in the New Testament. The timeline of Isaiah within 65 years is fulfilled in history. So what's the point of all these references? We can see then that in the Bible, symbols and prophetic acts are real events through which God communicates publicly to his people. They are not interior events in some person, providing a modern psychological prophecy. Isaiah's family is a textbook example of how biblical prophecy works. The children's very names function as prophecies of both mercy and judgment. This distinction between biblical and modern predictions and prophecies is important because the popular belief is that the Bible, like other religious books, is not to be understood literally. People think, oh, well, it's poetry. It is symbols. It is metaphorical language. That is ecstatic utterances from ancient people that are not meaningful to modern readers. That's what the critics say. As we can see, though, from this brief examination of just one of the hundreds of Bible prophecies, this idea is simply not true. Events in the Bible are grounded historically. Predictions made in the text are later, they come to pass in history. Please don't make the simplistic and false claim that perhaps biblical predictions were falsified and written down after a historical event took place. This accusation by critics who never read the Bible themselves has been debunked so many times that it's not necessary to review it here. Look it up on Google. This late-dated theory of critics gets repeated by other critics who never do their homework. Here are 3 major Bible predictions the critics cannot debunk, just to give you an example of feeling for the subject. The book of Daniel predicts the rise of a guy named Antiochus IV Epiphanes in 167 to 164 BCE. The book of Isaiah has a prophecy about a guy who rules, and his name is given in the prophecy. He's called Cyrus, in Isaiah 44, verses 28 through 45. And then Jesus predicts the destruction of the Jewish temple in Matthew 24, Mark 13, and Luke 21. Those prophecies cannot be debunked. They are given before the events, often hundreds of years, and come to pass in history. Conclusion. This is the way the Bible Bard works. Brief recitations are closely focused. No distractions, no rabbit trails. We are talking about what the literature of the Bible states, the ideas and concepts it presents, because most people have never engaged with biblical thought. Make up your own mind whether you agree or disagree with what the Bible teaches. Before or after listening to a podcast episode, you can go to www.biblebard.org and click the PDF link to download a transcript so you can read and refer to the content of the podcast. You can support the Bible Bard podcast on Patreon. As little as $1 a week or $5 a month helps cover the costs of the podcast. You can also give at GoFundMe or at the website. Just click the donations tab and follow the prompts. The Bible Bard himself takes no salary and does not financially benefit from the gifts of supporters to the ministry. You can send the Bible Bard any question or remarks you care to offer to BibleBardUS@gmail.com. Glad to hear from you. And thanks in advance for following and sharing the Bible Bard content. You know how this works. In order to advance the podcast, you need to do that. And you can then follow us on audio podcasts or on video platforms. Until next time, this is the Bible Bard.